Technology is reshaping our lives. It dramatically changed the way we live, the way we learn, the way we work, and the way we communicate. Technology has tremendous potential to connect us with one another. But there are still people who remain unreached, disconnected, and deprived of digital opportunities. Tech4ED centers serve as hubs that enable skills training and job opportunities.
We have more than 4,000 registered users, and about 67% are women, and majority composed of students as our beneficiaries. And why women? Because we are gender responsive, so all our programs are aligned with the gender and development program of our province.
Na tutunan ko yung ibang skills na dapat sa ibang schools na dapat per years dapat maano mo lang dito ng mabilisan ng mga months, mga 3 months, makakuha mo lang agad tapos maka-work agad.
This program helped me by finding a job and of course gaining more confidence as well. I was able to gain knowledge about the BPOs, on how does the environment work and how am I going to interact with my future customers.
As of now, as I was the call center agent, so I see that difference because as of now I'm earning more than I have earned before as a tricycle driver.
Have you ever felt?
Are you listening? Damn. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Good afternoon. We welcome you to join with us in this exciting content. Today, we will learn about one of the most emerging programming languages that is easy, simple, and straightforward. Because of its efficiency, it is designated as the official language of Google, and even NASA is using it. In 2015, 60% of parents would prefer their children to learn this programming language than French. If you are in IT and still don't know how to use it, definitely you are missing out. Welcome to the discussion of the Introduction to Python Programming, a dive into the fundamentals of Python programming and techniques. This webinar is brought to you by NOLITC Tech4ED Center and Coders Tribe. We are streaming live over YouTube and Facebook. We are immensely happy that you took time off your busy schedules to join us today. My name is Ms. Redon Lorente, and I will be serving as your host. NOLITC Webinars is a pioneering project of NOLITC Tech4ED Center that aims to provide relevant ICT-enabled services and content to its unserved and underserved communities. The Learning Center is one of the priority programs of Governor Eugenio Sebong Lacson under his 7-point priority agenda, Avance Negrense. NOLITC also offers various scholarships for our free online training, test the programs, and other special programs through the Negros Occidental Training for Work Scholarship Program with support of the Provincial Gender and Development Focal Point System. You may post your greetings in the comment section, tell us your name and where you are joining us from. We would love to know. Please share the link to your friends and colleagues and peers, and all together, let us learn. Before we start the webinar, let's pause for a moment and say a prayer, to be followed by the singing of the Philippine National Anthem and the Negros Hymn.
O labing makagagahom nga amay namon sa langit, mahinuklugon nga laon nga tagtugas ang langit, hangin, kalayo, tubig kag duta. Tanda ining imong timawa, kabay ining pag-ampo, magadulot sa amon sang kabuhi nga himaya. Salamat sa mga bugay nga imo ginpaambit sa amon. Salamat sa kabuhi nga ginadulot mo sa amon nga himpit. Salamat sa maayo nga panahon kag ilabi na gid sang imo katutom sa amon. Bendisyone ang imo katawhan. Bendisyone ang ila mga palangabuhian. Bendisyone ang mga panggas sa amon mga talamnan. Bendisyone ang ilang nga paglugayawan sa iban nga kapungsuran. Kabay makalabot sila nga walay sablag sa ila pagapadulungan. Kag ila binagid, bendisyone ining isla sang Negros nga amon natawhan. Kinahalad namon ang ining pag-ampo para sa imo kadayawan.
Bayang magiliw kaya sa silanganan, alam ng puso sa dibdib mo'y buhay. Lupang hinirang, duyan ka ng magiting, sa manlulupig, di ka pasisingil. Sa dagat at bundok, sa simoy at sa langit mong bagaw, may hilag ang tula at awit sa paglayang minamahal. Ang isap ng watawat mo'y tagumpay na nagdinigdig. Ang bituin at araw niyang kailan pa may di magdidilim. Lupa ng araw ng walhagit pansinta, buhay ay langit sa piling mo. Ang hinigaya na pag may mga api, ang mamatay ng dahil sa'yo. Sa kita kapamilya, pag-uligay, pag-inay, pag-ibog, madapat mag-ari sa kauswagan sa sikataon. At ikaw magandong sa was ng lag, manihog bala ang tanan sa kasahan. Agud wala may mapiling sa kalulong, nanangan gusto kagay sa ako. Ang matuod-tuod nga ngayon sa aton, isa katawagan, mabigalang taon. Sa unang dampuan na isang Kristo, sa kauswagan sa sikataon. Ang matuod-tuod nga ngayon sa aton, isa katawagan, mabigalang taon. Sa unang dampuan na isang Kristo, pagbulikan, paghigain, paghigog dapat maghari para sa kauswagan ng sikataon.
Thank you. Good afternoon again, and greetings to our participants from Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao, and to the other parts of the world. Thank you for joining us today. Please send again this link to your peers and your colleagues, and drop your comments in the comment section, and altogether, let us make this 2-hour session interactive. In 2020, NOLITC made the milestone when PhilSecNet awarded the center with Pandemic Resilience Award. We are also recognized nationally as Outstanding Tech4ED Center by the Department of Information and Communications Technology. The 3 programs of NOLITC are recognized with Star Awards by TESDA, namely 2-star award in our Contact Center Services NC2 and Visual Graphic Design NC3, and 1-star award in our 2D Animation NC3. The star rating system recognizes the accomplishments, innovations, and improvements that the center has instituted beyond the minimum requirements set by TESDA. The center has also pivoted to online training and conducted various in-demand webinars. This is our urgent and most accessible response to the ongoing global health crisis by providing relevant services and facilitating digital inclusiveness of communities. These webinars are absolutely free. To join, all you need to do is to register once and you will be given access to the entire webinars. Let me remind you to fill out the online attendance right now. The link to the online attendance is pinned in the comment section, or you may scan the QR code flashed on your screen right now. All right. I hope that you are with me and doing your online attendance. Okay. Also, we would like to remind you that you can participate in the open forum. You will need to post your questions through the online open forum form. Please find the link in our comment section as well. We will not be able to catch up with all of your comments. So if you have any questions, please post them in the open forum form link and not in the chat box. Again, the link in the open forum can be found in the comment section, or you may scan the QR code. You will also be receiving a certificate for attending this webinar online. You only need to accomplish the online evaluation of this webinar. Again, that can be found in the comment section, or you may scan the QR code, which will be flashed on your screen. I hope that you are all catching up with me with some of our opening reminders. If you have not seen our previous posts yet, kindly follow our social media accounts, follow us on Facebook, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. start today's webinar, let us have the leader who has a vision and knows how to turn her ideas into real life success stories. She is a passionate advocate of ICT, data science, and programming. Through her leadership, the center has able to implement programs in computer science, robotics, and many more. Her cognizance to some of the challenges confronting us in our day-to-day lives directed the center in adapting and addressing these issues. I'm talking about the vocational school administrator and Tech4ED Center Manager of NOLITC, Dr. Maria Cristina Orbicido. All right. So shortly we will have Dr. Tina. Meanwhile, we will be showing you another video. Please watch this.
Hi, I'm Roy, front-end web developer from Negros Occidental.
Hi, I'm Rabi, software developer from Bacolod City.
Hi everyone, my name is Genevieve Ambelic. I am CRM Functional Consultant from Mandaluyong City.
Mark Ersaniba, software developer, Roas City.
Hello, I'm John Mark, C# developer from Bacolod.
Hi, I'm Naresa Hava, a software test engineer from Negros Occidental.
Hi, I am Mario Caday, IT instructor from Butuan City.
Hi, I'm Software Joan Marie Fuentes, software developer from Victoria City.
Hi, I'm Alice Dave, the Bantige Computer Programmer 1 from Sagay City.
Hi, I'm JR, implementation consultant from Canada.
Thank you. We also would like to acknowledge the virtual presence of our audience joining us virtually. Hello, good afternoon to all of you. We have here participants joining us from Chennai, India. Hello there. And also, good afternoon to Joshua Abuhat, greetings from Sagay City, Negros Occidental. Hello there. And also, Judy Angelon from Davao City. Good afternoon, all the way from Davao. Thank you for joining us. We also have here Jana Barcelona and Queenie Tadifa. Hello. And another participant joining from Escalante City, Negros Occidental, Dexter Pasqua. Hello there. And to those who are from Escalante. And to Ernel Tortogo, hello. Kim Castor, again from Cadiz City, Negros Occidental. Raquel Estrella. Kurt Gotana Villaruel. Ian Dofelis, who is watching all the way from Binalbagan. Hello there. And we also have here Rio Jan Palma, who is joining with us from Cadiz City. Hello. Another one from Binalbagan, Jaymar Celestial. We have Jonna Gafate from Philomer Christian University, Rojas City. Hello there to the faculty and staff and students of Philomer Christian University. We have here Nick Jestosani. Good afternoon to you as well. Joshua Blanco. We have Lou Albito. Hello. Watching from Kamsi or University now. Congratulations, Kamsi. Binalbagan campus. We also have here Michelle Linco from Carlos Hilado Memorial University, Binalbagan, Negros Occidental. We also have here a participant from Mursha Fremi Banosing and Riel from Kamsi Binalbagan campus. We also have Sheena May, okay, from the same university. Hello. Angel Sevilla, Alea Tabino. Hi, Renchi again, and Sir Romel Alagos. Congratulations again to Kamsi campus for being now university, and to all of our participants who are joining with us virtually. Keep your comments, your shout out, and your greetings coming in the comment section. We would love to know where you're joining us from, and we would read your greetings throughout our webinar. Programming languages tends to share some foundational concepts and general building blocks. By learning these concepts, you can gain a better understanding of any new programming language that we might come across in the future. All right. With that being said, I again would like to introduce to you our vocational school administrator who will give us her opening message. We will have again Dr. Maria Cristina Orbicido. Let's give her a general round of applause.
Thank you, Ms. Red. Good afternoon to all our viewers joining us through Facebook channels and also through our YouTube channel. Hello and welcome to this webinar. I would like to warmly welcome our resource speaker, Mr. Jorge Cosgayon, Senior Software Engineer, and of course, our partners from Coders Tribe Solutions, led by Ms. Lani Lumagip. This is the second year of our NOLITC Tech4ED Webinar Series, and we started this advocacy at the onset of the pandemic to push for digital literacy and digital inclusion. This year, NOLITC Tech4ED Center focuses on digital jobs and opportunities. We are showcasing speakers from different IT industries to provide us with innovative ideas and solutions that will spur the growth of the IT sector during this pandemic, particularly in our province. The NOLITC Tech4ED Webinar Series is a project under the Office of Governor Bong Lacson through the Gender and Development Program. Our topic this afternoon is very interesting, and I hope that you'll stay with us towards the end of this session. And I invite you to really participate in our discussion because we have a very expert speaker who will impart to you a lot of interesting ideas and will also give you some tips on how to use Python as a programming language that will help you land a very high-paying job in the IT industry. Again, welcome and good afternoon, everyone.
Thank you very much, Dr. Tina Orbicido, Vocational School Administrator and Tech4ED Center Manager of NOLITC. Let's give Dr. Tina a virtual clap reaction. Thank you. Today we have invited a senior programmer to equip us with the skills in programming. Not only that he specializes in writing codes, but he also has an extensive knowledge of developing and running systems. He completed his bachelor's degree in commerce, major in management information systems from College of St. John in Rojas in 2003. He had been a lead back-end developer responsible for the core features and components of the programs that drive consumers' digital experiences. Formerly, he was the solutions architect of Servio Technologies, and from 2020 until present, he works as a freelance software development specialist. It is my great honor to introduce to you our resource speaker for today, Sir Jorge Cosgayon. Let's give him a generous round of applause.
Thank you,
Good
Ms. Red.
afternoon, Sir Jorge.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon to all our participants. Thank you to NOLITC and Coders Tribe for giving me the opportunity to impart some of my knowledge to the next generation.
Yes.
Okay, so I'll just share my screen. Okay, so this webinar is about getting into Python programming. And we'll be looking into Python as a way to get your feet wet into programming. So before we start, here are some of the assumptions that I have. So it's either you don't have much or any programming experience, but you're interested. So this is very important. You're at least interested. So it's okay if you don't have, if you didn't learn much programming when you're studying or you never encountered it before, but you're curious. You wanna dive into the field. That's great. So I'm assuming that, or you've started a different language but haven't gotten very far yet. So probably maybe PHP or C#, Java, .NET. That's fine. Python is a great language to get into when you're coming from a different language, because a lot of the things that you've already learned, you can transfer easily to Python. Or you want to shift careers. Maybe you're, I did notice a clip in the Coder's Lab video where there was a tricycle driver who's now in the BPO industry, something like that. That's awesome. If you can shift careers like that, that would be great. Or you want to use programming as a way to make certain tasks easier in your current field. So, like for example, you're working in an office, you have maybe a lot of things that are repetitive. Maybe let's say you're working with a large Excel sheet, no, and there's a lot of data in there, and you wanna be able to perform some manipulations to it, maybe sort them in order. But here's a great example. Let's say, for example, you have an Excel sheet, and then I'll use something local to me as an example. No? Let's say students signing up uh, for a registration to something, and then there's a field there that requires a school, and maybe let's say, for example, there's somebody entered Capiz National High School, for example. So 4 words. Tapos that's all in uppercase. And then somebody entered Capiz National, but National is NAT apostrophe L High School. And then Capiz High or just CNHS. Technically, those 4 are the same, but the computer doesn't understand that those are the same. So Python can be a way for you to clean up that data so that you get uh, you get the data correctly, that those 4 different sequences of letters are mean the same thing. It's one school. Yeah, or maybe just cataloging certain things in your inventory, etc. Basta there's a lot of things you can do with Python to make your current job easier. So these are some of the assumptions that I have. Of course, you may already be knowledgeable in programming. If that's the case, this is gonna be probably just a very, very shallow refresher for you, because I'll be going from these 4 assumptions. So just to cast a wider net, and we can cater to more people. All right. So let's begin with what is Python. Fundamentally, Python is a high-level, general-purpose programming language often used to build websites and software, automate tasks, and conduct data analysis. So let's parse that sentence for a bit. So Python is a high-level language. What does this mean? We can look at programming languages based on how close they are to the bare metal, to the machine. So like something like when we say it's a high level language, it's closer to the person, it's closer to how we normally use language. It's You'll see in a bit, it almost looks like it's in English, right? So whereas something like assembly, which is considered a low level language, is much closer to the machine, to machine code, than it is to what we can understand. And then there's, of course, binary, there's outright machine code that we don't understand, or we'd have a difficult time trying to read. So Python is a lot easier to understand, especially for beginners, because it's a very high level programming language. Its syntax, its grammar is very close to to what you would use normally. English, of course. It's also a general purpose programming language, meaning it doesn't have a specific application. You can use it for a lot of things, and we'll see very briefly some of the things you can do with it, but it's not specialized to do one thing. So you can do it for websites, you can do it for automating tasks, like I mentioned, for Excel, etc., CSV files, and data analysis. So that said, it can be used to create a variety of different programs. No? So it's not specialized in anything. It's not pigeonholed to one ecosystem. So that means if, for example, this certain ecosystem falls apart or is no longer viable, it can still be used in other ways, right? So it's also an interpreted language, meaning it requires an interpreter for it to run. So we can also look at programming languages as either interpreted or compiled. No. Compiled means that you compile your code, ship it, it runs. No, so usually, that's where you see programs with a .exe file or .com in the good old days. On the other hand, Python is an interpreted language, meaning it needs the Python interpreter to run. Even things like Py2exe, which quote unquote compiles Python, it bundles in the Python interpreter, so it ships with the Python interpreter. Now, so the benefit of an interpreted language is that you can code live. You can see live what you're doing. It's not going to be that you have to wait for it to compile before you can see the result of your code, right? So that's interpreted. So let's take a look at a few applications now. So for the web, Python is a back-end programming language. What this means is it does the work that's necessary for the front end to present the presentation layer, the data that you want. Right. So in the web, there's usually what we call a front end, and then there's the back end. The front end is what the user interfaces with. That's where you have your UI UX. That's where you have your graphics. That's where you have your animation. That's what people click on. So you have that layer, and then let's say somebody clicks on a button. The button needs to tell the back end what's happening, and then the back end needs to decide what to do when the button is clicked. So let's say, for example, you're sending a chat message, right? So you type in the chat box, and then you hit enter or you click send. That message is sent from the front end to the back end, and then the back end looks at, okay, who's this from? What's the message? Who's it for? And then does some processing, and then sends it to the front end of, or rather, either it sends it to the front end of the receiver, or the front end requests for the message from the front end. Right. So basically, the front end is your browser. So that's where you have your HTML. That's where you have your CSS, and then some JavaScript. And then, of course, JavaScript can also be on the back end. And to facilitate this, so Python being a back-end layer, interfaces with services such as message queuing, databases, things of that nature. So it has mature and cutting edge frameworks for web development. So the more traditional frameworks would be Django, named after Django Reinhardt, the great jazz musician, and Flask. So those are the common ones. Django is this batteries included, massive, easy to use framework. And Flask is this fast, small framework that also allows you to do a lot of the things that Django does. No? The difference is in their purpose. Django is usually used for larger systems. Flask is used for if you don't need all of the bells and whistles that Django provides. And then lately, in the cutting edge of web application framework for Python, we have Fast API, Sanic, Tornado, Bottle, etc. So these are asynchronous web frameworks wherein usually these are used for making APIs. So that's gonna be a bit esoteric to discuss, but for they're asynchronous, meaning they can handle processes concurrently. No? So unlike something like Django, unless you specifically tell it to, it will wait for something to happen before giving you a reply. Asynchronous frameworks will receive your request, do something, and then while that's not finished, do something else so it can handle more concurrent transactions. Okay, so that's for the web. So it also has support for a lot of databases, particularly PostgreSQL and the classics, no, MySQL, Oracle, those kinds of things. So you can use Python for backend web development. You can also use Python for scientific and numeric applications. What does this entail? So this is where the data science people come in. All right. So you have packages like NumPy, which is a large collection of high-level mathematical functions for operations on large multidimensional arrays and matrices, meaning it can perform calculations really quickly on a large data set. So get the average or the standard deviation for 1,000,000 rows. It can do that quickly. Also SciPy for science and engineering. So it has packages for modeling, getting for your transforms, calculus, that kind of thing. Pandas is another package in Python. It's used for data analysis and for multidimensional arrays also. Actually, NumPy is part of, is a requirement for pandas. And then the great thing for education these days is the Jupyter Notebook and IPython, which lets you have interactive code. So you can share interactive code between researchers or between students, and the users can just run the code as you wrote it and add to it live and have visualizations on it. It's a great tool for research. So that's why Python is a hot topic in data science, because of all of these packages that allow you to manipulate numbers in ways that would be very easy compared to using something like R or MATLAB, that kind of thing. So because the syntax is a lot easier, we'll go over the syntax in a bit and you'll see what I mean. And then you can also create graphical UIs for Python, although it's not as mature as something like .NET or just using HTML for the UI, but you can for native applications. So you have WX widgets, Kiwi. Kiwi can also be used for mobile apps. So you because it can understand touch applications, and Qt apply Qt, which is a library for making UIs uniformly across a system, so that, for example, your app looks the same on a Mac, on a PC, on Linux, that kind of thing. And we have automation. So you can use Python to, as I mentioned earlier, manipulate or create CSV files. Now, CSV files are like primitive spreadsheets. CSV stands for comma separated values. So you can have a very primitive spreadsheet where the fields are separated by commas. Also, and then other spreadsheets like Excel, that kind of thing. You can also use Python to manipulate images. Let's say, for example, you have a large catalog of photos. Let's say you're a photographer, or you work for a photographer or whatever, and then your boss or you want your watermark to appear on all the images. And so let's say, yeah, like a wedding, for example. There's gonna be I don't know, a CD's worth. I don't know actually how much, but let's say, for example, 1,000 images, and you want a watermark for those images, and that's gonna take a while to do in, let's say, Photoshop or something. You can write a Python script that overlays your watermark on the image. So the work of, I don't know, a few days happens in an hour or something like that. You can also schedule tasks, so you can have a timer, run that, and then let's say, funny story. I had a friend who is fairly into, what is that game? Clash of Clans. And then he had to do a routine. I don't know how it works now. I've never played the game, but he needed to have something happen every 20 minutes or something. And so I wrote a script that would manipulate his mouse to click on a certain area of the screen, because he had Clash of Clans running on an emulated mobile device. So I'm not really sure what was happening. No, it's probably a cheat. I don't know, for all I know. But that's something you can do. Like, you can manipulate it to, let's say, click on this area of the screen every 10 minutes, etc., etc. So for repetitive tasks. I had a problem previously where I had a bunch of files that had the format. So there was a name and then underscore, and then there were numbers. So the numbers represented a date. And I needed to have those values switched, because para in order from the date, right? So I needed to have the numbers at the end moved to the front of the file name, and doing that manually. So we're talking about a few thousand files, right? So doing that manually would take a while. So what I did was I wrote a script a few lines long. So and then it automatically sorted it for me. So that's something you can do, let's say, in your office job, if you're staff or whatever. Just be creative with how you want to approach it, and then think about how you want to solve the problem, which is actually the hardest part of programming. It's not learning the syntax, it's not learning the language, it's formulating a solution to solve the problem in front of you. So let's get started with Python. So you can download Python. Just go to python.org and click on downloads. You'll find actually, I'll show you. So let's click on downloads. So it's gonna show you the latest version. You can also see the other versions if you need an older version of Python. Right. So just click on download, run it, and you should be good. When you download Python, it comes with the idle shell. So a quick aside, a lot of the things in Python is meant to be sort of funny because Python actually gets its name from the comedy troupe Monty Python. Right? So if you're young, you might want to YouTube Monty Python and look at their sketches. So they have um, they have jokes, etc. Right. So the idle shell is named after Eric Idle, which is one of the members of the Monty Python comedy troupe. Right. So you can just run idle, and this should show up. This is your interactive shell. This is what I was talking about earlier when I said that you can see the code that you're writing live. No, so you don't have to compile. You don't have to wait for it to compile. You can see the errors right away. You can see the results right away. So this is a great tool for you to start on. So you can just run that. That comes bundled with Python. And then we can immediately write some code. So the as is standard practice with all programming languages, let's greet the world. And it's just a simple print, hello world. And then it says, hello world. So let's dissect this a bit. Print is what we call a function. So it's a way for you to issue a command to the Python interpreter, and then you pass it what we call a parameter. So a parameter is so for something like print, let's say, you're gonna give what do you want it to print, right? So we wanted to print hello world. So we pass the string hello world. You'll notice the quotation marks. We'll get to that in a bit. But that's pretty much how it works. Now, so this is how you call a function. You type the function name and then you pass the parameters inside parentheses. Even if you don't have parameters inside, you still need the parentheses. No? So if it's just blank, you can just say print and nothing gets printed because you didn't pass a parameter. Right? Okay. Now, when you're into development, now you're gonna want to be using what we call an integrated development environment. So one of the best IDEs is something called PyCharm, and there's a free version for it. You can download jetbrains.com/PyCharm, and then so I do have this here. So PyCharm, there's a free version. So when you download, you can see, so there's a professional that's paid, and then there's community with this is a free version. If you have an edu email, if you're a student or a teacher and you have an .edu email, you can download the education version. Actually, you can download the professional version for free. Even the full-fledged if you have the edu email, just sign up sa JetBrains website. You can also use something like Visual Studio Code, which is a product by Microsoft, which is a great code editor, and you can build it up to have most of the functionality of PyCharm, but it's very fast. It's very easy to use. It just it's just not optimized for Python right away. You have to install the packages for Python, unlike PyCharm, which is andun na lahat. But Visual Studio Code is still a great IDE. Right. Okay. So let's go to the language right away. So the bare minimums that we want a programming language to be able to do is it needs to store data, it needs to perform calculations or instructions. It needs to have some kind of conditional logic or relational algebra capability. You need a way for it to perform repetitive tasks. Otherwise, what's the point, right? And you need a way to group these instructions together so that you don't have to type the whole thing again every time you want it to execute. Right? So let's take a look at storing data. So when we store data, we use what we call variables. So in a nutshell, variables are pieces of memory in your computer that store your data. So you don't need to understand right away how it works. Just think of it like there's a container. No, so there's a bucket, and so that bucket is a memory location, and then inside that bucket is your value that you stored. So the value of the variable and the name of the variable. So you need a way to access this piece of information. So you need to give it a name, right? So there are three things that are typically common with variables. It needs to have a type. So what kind of value or what kind of data is in the variable? It needs to have a name, meaning you need to be able to call it, right? And it needs to have a value. A value can be null or nothing for now or something else, right? So those are the three basic things. So variables need to also be referenced and manipulated. That's why it has a name, right? So I'll just take something from this variable. Very good. Okay. So, and this is how we do that in Python. Here we say a is equal to 5. So we are assigning the value of 5 to a variable named a. So, and then we can print a and it will have 5, right? And then we can perform operations on it, a plus 6, so 5. The value of a plus 6 is 11. Then also assign strings. So hello and world, and then we can say print word 1, comma, word 2, and it will print it there. Okay, so that's how we assign values and retrieve values from the variable names, from the variables themselves. Right? So let's look at the types. Let's look at Python primitives for now. So there's gonna be too much information for me to discuss abstract data types, objects and classes, etc. In the time that we have, but let's discuss the primitives. So in Python, there's 4. We have integers, floats, strings, and booleans. Now, so this is an example. So an integer, layman's term, it's a whole number. It's a number that doesn't have decimal points. So, and then a float stands for a floating point number. So it has a decimal point. So it's very important to understand there's 2 basic numbers that you have that you're working with in Python. So integers and floats. Later on, you'll be exposed to more advanced numbers, even imaginary numbers. But for now, let's stick to this. And then the string is just a a word or even just a single letter or a blank. Even blank is okay. No. The only thing you need for a string, you'll notice, is that it has quotation marks. You can use double quotes or single quotes. That's up to you. Just be uniform. You start with a double quote, you have to end with a double quote. Otherwise, it won't understand what you're doing. So that's a string. And then a Boolean is a true or false value. So you can think of this as 0 or 1, 0 being false, 1 being true. Pero Python has a shortcut for it, which is true and false. Now, capital letter T for true and capital letter F false. So those are the four we have. And then moving on, so basics, we need to be able to perform operations on them, on our variables, on our data. So of course you have the basic addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. So we saw this earlier, right? You're just adding, and then you can add and then store the value to a variable. In this case here, we are adding population. We are adding 3 to the variable population and then storing it to the variable population, meaning we are updating the value of the population variable. So now, population. So I'll demonstrate. So let's say population is equal to 5, for example. So when we say print population, has the value of 5, right? When we say population plus 2, the answer is 7, but population will still have the value of 5 because we did nothing to population itself. We just added a number to it, and then that's it. If we want to store the new value, we can say population is equal to population plus 2. And now when we print, population, the value is now 7 because we saved the new value to a variable. We can also do shortcuts like say population plus equals 5. So when we print population now, that should be 12. So this is shortcut now. So this does the same thing as this one. So it saves you a few keystrokes. It's not very readable. I still prefer this because it's very clear what you're doing. Right. And then we can also, of course, population minus 4. So population times 5. You get the idea, right? So some other advanced operations, let's say we want to square population times 2. So using 2 asterisks means you are squaring the value. So that's 12 times 12. So that's the same thing as saying population or population cube. So you can also have a string. What you can't do is, for the most part, you can't perform operations on 2 variables that have a different type, except for some very specific circumstances. So like we can't have name plus population. You can only concatenate a string to a string. But what we can multiply. Let's say name times 3 is going to repeat. Okay? But of course you can't subtract, you can't divide. So just very, very specific use cases like in multiplication. So what if we want to, let's say, location, let's say Negros. Let's say we want to show a string and a number in the same line. What we can do is use a fairly new feature in Python called f-string, which is a formatted string. So, and oops, sorry. And it's a fairly easy way to combine variables within a single line. No? You just preface your string with an f. So what do I mean? It's able to show you. So let's put an f there before the quotation marks. The population of location. Let's see. Yes. Okay. So what the f-string does is it allows you to insert variables or the values of the variables inside the string as long as you encapsulate it in curly braces, right? So f, the population of location is this. So when we hit enter, the population of Negros is 12. So it's a great way to organize your variables for display. Okay. So you can of course add strings. No, so let's go back to it. So we have name and then location. So we can say name plus location. Negros. So yeah. We can also do some manipulations on strings. So there are a few functions that we have now. So let's say, for example, Toto, right? Name. The great thing about idle is when you say name dot. If you wait a while, there's going to be a pop-up showing you all the operations that you can do with it. No? So let's say, for example, capitalize. That will make the first letter capital, or name dot upper. So it's very easy for things like that. The really great thing, the really exciting thing about string manipulation in Python is you can do slicing and indexing on them. What does that mean? So consider the word Toto, or let's have new word. Let's say supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. Okay, so it's a very long word, right? So let's say we want to just get the first 5 letters of it. We can reference a string by an index. So what's an index? It's a pointer to the specific location of your letter within or an object within a collection. So in this case, the collection being a string. So in this case, the index of the first letter is going to be 0. The second is 1. So basically, to get this, it's going to be the length of the word or the length of the string minus 1. So because you're starting at 0. And you can say len new word, you get the length of the word. And then how do we reference the index? We can say new word, and then to specify the index, we just enclose the index inside square brackets. So in this case, we're going to have S because it's the first word, first character. New word 1, U, etc., etc. And not very exciting until you see you can also do this, -1, which is going to start counting from the end. So new word -2. I'm sorry, new word -2. Right, so new word -3. So in a P, right? So it's counting from the end. Okay, so we can also do something like this: new word, and then len of new word, right? So instead of typing 34, we can just pass in a function, but this is gonna return an error. Why? Because this is 34 characters, but the last index is 34 minus 1 because we're starting at 0, right? So new word, len new word -1 is going to work. Same thing. Okay. So far, not very interesting yet, but you can do slices. Slices are great because you can do something like this. New word, so let's say 0 to 5. So you start with, so this is your start, and this is your end exclusive. So go to the 5th, but not included. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is not included. So you can also do this in reverse. New word. So we start at -1, and then we end at -6, for example. Oops. No, sorry, because it's still moving forward. So new word, -6, -1. Okay. Or if you want to just reverse the whole thing, here's a great trick. You can add a third parameter. So let's say 0, and then -1. So hanggang sa dulo. And then the third parameter, or the third argument there, you can say ang step. Because right now it's going to do this sequentially. But let's say, let's skip twice. So every second word. So su, S, U, P, it's going to do that. The third argument can also be negative. So you can just do something like this, and you just reverse the whole word just like that with one line of code. New word, let's say -1, and then let's say upper, you transform it to uppercase. Really, really easy to do, really, really quick to do string manipulations like this. So especially for office work, this is going to be fantastic for education, for research. Just compiling a lot of data that's going to be dirty because there's going to be typos. It's really handy for that. Okay. Then, of course, we need to have a way to check the logic, to introduce some form of discrete mathematics to what we do. So conditional logic, meaning mga if, you're checking if this is correct or this has the value that you expect, things like that. No. So let's take a look at comparison operators first. No, so there's gonna be an equal, which is a double equal. No? So greater than, less than, greater than or equal to, less than or equal to, not equal to. So you might be wondering, how do you type this symbol? It's actually automatic. That's just a display. So you just type, let's say, for example, A is equal to 5, B is equal to 4. Right? So A equals B, that's gonna return, so a conditional expression returns either true or false. So it's gonna return false because 5 is not equal to 4. So let's say A is greater than B. It's gonna be true. A greater than or equal to. So I'm just typing greater than equal to, automatic lang ng interpreter display as something pretty. So that's going to be true also. A less than B, A less than equal to B. It's going to be false, obviously. A not equal to. So ang not equal to is an exclamation point and an equal sign. So that's going to be true because 5 is obviously not equal to 4. You're also going to encounter the is keyword and the not keyword. Basically, is, it's a bit more complex because it deals with objects now, but it's going to check if, let's say A is B. It's going to be false because A is not an instance of B, or it's not a type of B. A more concrete example would be, let's say, for example, 5 is going to be equal to 5.0. So that's going to be true. But 5 is not going to be equal to 5.0 because 5 is an integer, whereas 5.0 is a float. So we say 5 is not 5.0. That's going to be true. Cool. Okay. So moving forward, let's take a look at the conditionals. We have the if statement, which can also have an else or an elif. So an if statement follows the following. So if condition, so things to do if condition is true, else things to do if condition is not true or is false. Okay, so basically, you evaluate condition using your comparison operators, and then you specify instructions that needs to happen if the condition is true. Here we see the first real difference of Python with other programming languages. Now, indentation is very important in Python because it's how you group blocks of statements together. So, so you have here your condition, colon, which denotes, okay, stop. The following commands are going to be things that you do if condition is true. You'll notice there's going to be an indentation there. And then when you end, kung tapos na tong things to do if the condition is true, you go back and you make sure this is a line else. So it should be very self-explanatory. So let's say, for example, we have let's say n is equal to 50. So if let's assume we don't know the value of n. So if n is greater than 50, we can say print n is greater than 50. Else, so you'll notice now pag print ko, it's still aligned, pag enter, it's still going to be aligned to that because it's group there. But if you want to end the statement, you can say else print n is not greater than. Okay. So it's gonna say n is not greater than 50 because n 50 is not greater than 50. It's equal to, right? Okay. You can also even just say if, just the if alone, n is greater than 50. Print greater. So this is not gonna return anything because you didn't specify an else block. That should happen if the original condition is false. Okay, so how do you, we can also have more conditions. No? So I actually have an example here. You can use an elif. So let's say sa grading system. Let's say if A is greater than 99, it's 1. If so, let's say the grade is 93. Okay. So is 93 greater than 99? No. So this is not going to execute. It's going to check this out. Check here. Else if is 93 greater than or equal to 96? Still no. So it's not going to do this. It's going to check here. Is 93 greater than 94? Still no. So it's not going to do this. And then it's going to reach here. Is 93 greater than or equal to 91? So that's true. And it's going to print 1.75. Now, the reason why nag-okay na yan is because, what's the grade that it's 90. So let's do that here. Let's say grade is equal to 90. So if A is greater than or equal to 99, 1.0. Just for brevity's sake, no, so let's say if A is greater than or equal to 95, then 1.25, and if A is greater than or equal to 90, then 5, else, then very strict. So it's gonna print bagsak. Why? I'm sorry, but 8 to. My bad. It should have been, this is grade. So since grade is 90, this should print 1.5. Right? Okay. Then a programming language should be able to perform repetitive tasks. So the quick way to do this sa Python is using a for loop. And the great thing about it is it has a very simple syntax. So I'll show you. So we have new word, right? Supercalifragilistic. Okay. So let's say, for example, we want to loop through each. So say we can use a for loop. So the syntax of a for loop is this: for item in collection. Colon. So collection is the collection of objects that you have. So a string is a collection of characters. And then for every time that it iterates, item is that value. So I'll show you here now for letter in word. You can say print the current letter is letter. So it's gonna go through each letter. So every time it loops. So for the first time it loops, it's the card letters S, then U, etc., etc. Okay, so let's say something simple. You just want to count to 100 or to 10. No, so we can specify a range. So range, kung range 10, you just say that it's going to start from 0 to 9. No? So for, let's say, for number in range, let's start with 0 to 10. Print number. So it's not going to include 10 because this is 10 already. No? So 0 to 9. If you want to include 10, so we say for number in range 1, 11, and number, there you go. So that's 1 to 10. Okay, so for loops are also great if you have a collection. No, so this is more advanced ng data types no, for lists. We'll get to that in a bit. So let's say we have scores here. So this is a tuple. This is a collection of scores, for example. And then we want to get the average of these scores. So the total is 0, the average is 0 for now. And then we can do a for loop for score in scores. We say that the total is accumulated total plus score. Because remember, for every time that you loop inside scores, score is that particular value. No? So first score is 95 plus 0. Tapos, it's going to be 87 plus 95. And then 80 plus kung ano yung sum ng nito, etc., etc. And then the total is 772. The average is obviously the total divided by the number of scores. So it's total over num scores. And then you have 77.2. Okay. So the other kind of loop is a while loop. Now, a for loop is great if you have a finite or a fixed collection. You know, for the most part, how large it's going to be. But if you have, let's say, for example, an instance where you're waiting for something to change from the user, you can use a while loop, like in this instance. No? So right now, choice is equal to y. And then we're saying, while choice is equal to y, it's going to ask for an input, go again. And then if they enter y, it's going to loop again. And it's going to keep doing that until they enter something that's not y. Right? So here, go again, y is checking, go again, y checking, go again, and checking did not repeat na. So that's your while loop. And then finally, functions are a way to group your instructions together. So you don't have to type them over and over again ad infinitum until you're blue in the face. Right? So, for example, greeter here. So a function is defined by the keyword def, followed by the function name, and then followed by, remember, ang print is also a function. It has parameters. So this is how you define your parameters. So that means this greeter function accepts a parameter name. And then here, let's say, kilala niya si June. And then if name is equal to June, it's going to print, Uy, June, kumusta? Else, it's just going to say, hello, name, kumusta? So when we call that function now, let's say greeter1, it's going to say, hello, kamusta? Di niya kilala. Pero kung si June, Uy, June, kamusta? See? So it's going to be different. Okay. So here is a more complex function called the guessing game. Here we're going to we're gonna include the random integer function from the random library. Actually, I think it would be best if we code this live, no, para makita nyo. So, import random def guessing game. Okay. So, just very quickly, we're gonna initialize number to random number between 0 to 100. So, number is equal to random.rand int 0 100. So we don't know what the number is. So then let's just say we want to keep the number of tries that we have, and then we're gonna ask for an input. So this is I'll explain this in a bit now. So tries is equal to 1 because every time you call it, that's the first try, right? So the next piece of code is we're gonna ask for a choice. So choice is equal to input guess. Okay. So the thing here is when we're doing this, all text input is going to be a string because it's from a keyboard. No, so we're gonna get an input from the keyboard that's gonna be a string to begin with. But since we're going to be comparing their choice to a number that we generated that's a random integer, we need to convert what they entered into an integer. Okay, so this is where this comes in. So we're forcing Python to understand that this input has to be converted to an integer. And then we're going to do a while loop. While the choice is not the same as the number, right? So while choice is not equal to number, we're going to give hints. So if choice is greater than number, we're going to say choice is too high, right? Else print f choice is too low, and then we're going to ask for the input again. No, so we're gonna tell them to try again, right? So we're gonna repeat this, and then we're gonna increment tries. So choice equal to input again, and then increment price. Price equal to 1. Okay, and then finally we're gonna say you got it in price. Okay, so let's play guessing game. So guess, I'm gonna guess 50. It's too high, so I'm gonna guess 25. 25 is too high, so I'm gonna guess 12. Too high pa rin. So I'm gonna guess 7. Too low na. Okay, so I'm gonna guess 9. I got it in 5 tries. Okay. Cool so far. Okay. So here's an example of that in action also. Right. And then finally, a collection data types. We've already seen this in action. We have what we call lists now. So this becomes more complex, but this is where it gets really exciting. Is because you can have you can assign multiple values to a single variable. Logically it makes sense. Right? So let's say the students Gomez, Burgos, and Zamora. This is their prelim, midterm, pre-5 final grades, and then we can perform a lot of calculations really quickly, really easily, based on a collection because collected na. So you're imposing some kind of logical structure to how you're storing data. So we know that 93 is a grade of Gomez, no? So that's their midterm grade, for example, etc., etc. And then we can create a function, let's say final grade, that what this is going to do is it's going to loop over the grades given and then returns an average. So here we have, let's say, the final grade of Gomez is we're going to calculate, we're going to call this function final grade Gomez. So we're going to pass this collection of integers and then store it to Gomez underscore FG. Right? And then getting the class average now is easy. It's just the final grade of Gomez, final grade of Burgos, and final grade of Zamora divided by 3. Right? So it's you're getting a lot of things done really quickly by using collections and all that. So we can also use dictionaries. So this becomes more complicated na, but it's great because then you can have logical data structures in your code. No, so let's say we can say student one has a first name Juan, last name De La Cruz, and ang grades niya, you can even have a list inside this dictionary, and then you can access. So you're combining a lot of data into something that's very easy to access and very easy to manipulate. So we can use the previous function final grade to pass, for example, student one grades, and it will pass this value to that final grade function. And you get a lot of things done really quickly. So I do have some bit of code here that I want to show you. So let's say, for example, this one. You have, I went ahead and did this now. So let's say we have a list of dictionaries. So we have the students, si Juan, si Pedro, and si Lucas. So right now, blank ang quizzes and exams nila. But we can so we can say from so let's say, so we have access now to these students, right? So if we say students lang, we have these now. So let's say the first student is going to be this one, si Juan. No? So let's say we're gonna add quizzes. So ang quizzes ni Juan is, let's say, for example, let's say, so first 10, 15, 23, whatever, kung ano man. No? So now we see that Juan's quizzes have a value na, right? And then we can call this function, say, get average, and pass in students 0 quizzes. So let's say one average now is, so we can say, so here we see one average print Average is 14.5. Right? And then let's say exams, students, 0 exams. So let's say 90 siya sa prelim, 87 siya sa midterm, 88 sa pre-fi, 93 sa finals. Okay? And then we can say get average of students, 0 exams, students is 89.5, and then we can say get equiv, no? So get equiv, it's a 2, right? So makes a lot of things. It can do a lot of things like that really quickly. Now, this is an example wherein hopefully this is something that is easy to grasp, no? And there's a world of potential for expanding some of the basics that we've covered here. I'm sure if you're genuinely interested, your instructors in the future will be able to provide even more in-depth ins- guidance for it. But in case you want to learn on your own, here are a few websites that I would recommend. So the first is afterhoursprogramming.com. So it goes from really introductory stuff that I covered just now to more advanced things. But it's really geared for people who want to learn programming on the side. And then if you really want to start getting serious about it, you can go here, greenteapress.com /think Python. So this is a free book, online book, that teaches you how to think like a computer scientist. So this is more if you really want to do a deep dive into Python. And then for more advanced things, you can go to realpython.com, and then just browse their tutorials and video courses. And then finally, if you want to do certain specific tasks to make you more productive, you can go to automatetheboringstuff.com. Again, this is a free book. You can just take a look at the table of contents. It discusses the basics, but then gets into really exciting stuff like web scraping, working with Excel spreadsheets, manipulating images, controlling the keyboard and mouse, etc., etc. So these 4 websites I would greatly recommend if you want to explore further. So afterhoursprogramming.com, greenteapress.com /think Python, realpython.com, and automatetheboringstuff.com. Okay, and that concludes my webinar for today. I hope you picked something up from it. I'd like to say hi to Mom Gafate, by the way. I saw she was in attendance earlier. And that's it. I hope you guys continue your journey, and good luck.
Thank you, Sir Jorge. Indeed, it's a very insightful and meaningful webinar. Can we give Sir Jorge a virtual clap reaction? Let's utilize our virtual reactions button, and let's give Sir Jorge a heart or a clap, a virtual reaction. After learning about syntax, logical data structures, and how to write Python code, it's time to test our understanding. But okay, so now it's time to introduce our moderator who will also take us through our open forum segment. She completed her Bachelor of Arts major in Broadcast, Communication, and Management from the University of the Philippines in the Visayas, and she has 7 years of extensive experience as a reporter and news writer, where she covered political beat to present local news report, the public radio style. Ladies and gentlemen, let's have the very kind and industrious Miss Sally Carman Trio.
Thank you so much, Miss Red. All right, so let's ask once again our speaker for the question and answer. So indeed, Python is what I said earlier, is the high level programming, but it's usually the language often used to build websites and software. So yeah, that's quite amazing. And actually, for some, probably especially for students who are watching right now, that was just an easy thing to do for all of you. And the good thing is that Sir Jorge was able to present as well the websites or the sites that you may learn more about Python. So if it's okay, let's ask again Sir Jorge to be on the virtual stage. Hi, sir. Thank you for sharing your expertise with us. So are you now ready to take on the few questions from our audience?
Yeah, let's go.
All right. So first we have here question number 1. How useful is Python and how it will help me as a student?
As programming languages go, it's as useful as the amount of effort you put into it, no, to learn. So the applications for it is if you have basically anything that you have repetitive tasks that you want to have done fast. So you can program that and have Python execute it. So I'm not sure exactly sa use case mo what your course is. Pero let's say, for example, you're in the social sciences or in engineering, or you're dealing with statistics, right? So you're dealing with numbers and you want to calculate the standard deviation, or even the more complex stuff like you want to do linear regression, things like that. It's very easy in Python. So if you're in engineering, if you're in psychology, social science, pol sci, you're doing a lot of statistics. Python is great for that. In fact, it's the de facto standard for the academe in open source because it's free, unlike something like MATLAB or R that you have to pay for. Actually, R is free also, but yeah, unlike MATLAB.
Yeah, that's right. So even the professional version, you said earlier that it was for free. They can download it for free, right? So before we proceed, yeah, sorry. Okay, so
Python's free. Ang PyCharm I was talking about was the editor. If you have an EDU email, you can download it for free.
Yes, all right. So before we proceed, we would just like to give a shout out to Dr. Jennifer Waneza of Kamsi Binalbagan and Sir Giovanni Ten of Kamsi Alihis, as well as to Dr. Elvin Locatin of NONESCOS for sharing this link to your students. Actually, most of our viewers or audience right now, Sir Jorge, are coming from this university and colleges. So let's now proceed to question number 2. What would you suggest? Or wow, you got a cat. Miss Red will be in awe of that. What would you suggest or recommend for us who wants to become a programmer, probably a student, an IT student from NONESCOS?
Well, join Coders Tribe. That's one. Avail of NOLITC's offerings. If you want to go further, I recommended the 4 websites to get you started. That should help a lot. As far as just do it, like just have to keep at it. No? So I'd recommend you visit those websites and subscribe to NOLITC's Facebook page, Coders Tribe's Facebook page and keep up to date.
Yes. Thank you so much. So later on, Sir Kim will talk about the software development training program that we offer. But before that, let's proceed to question number 3. What is the difference between IDE and idle in Python?
Okay, idle is a very simple IDE. So it's not meant for projects. It's meant to just get your feet wet into it. No, so an IDE is an integrated development environment, meaning it has everything. You have your debugger, you have your version control. It has a lot of things that make the development process easier. So an IDE lets you forget about needing to remember kung na-push mo na sa repository or things like that. No? So mag-debug, you just click. Idle is a very simple IDE. It's not really even integrated anywhere. It's just your visual interpreter. So to test your code, to practice Python, for example. Or in this case, when I was showing examples of code.
All
So
right.
yeah, that's
Mhm. All right. So I hope that answered your questions. And let's now proceed to question number 4. Will the do while loop work if you don't end it with semicolon?
you actually don't use semicolons at all in Python. So that's other programming languages. Probably you meant colon. So it will throw an error if you don't have a colon. Let's say, for example, four students, and you don't have a colon at the end. It's gonna throw an error because that's a syntax error. You have to have a colon, not a semicolon at the end.
All right. So question number 5, sir. How is Python different from Java?
Syntax, obviously. So adoption. Java has a more robust adoption in enterprise. A lot of legacy systems are using Java. Um, More people in the academe, more people in the academe are using Python because it's easy. The syntax is a lot easier. It's way easier in Python than in Java. Other than that, they're pretty much similar in what they can do. Ang biggest advantage lang ng Java is there are a lot more embedded applications for Java, such as in your mobile phone, right? If you want to code native Android devices, Java is native sa Android, unlike Python. Pero pretty much what one can do, the other can do it.
All right. Okay. So that's good. So let's now proceed to the last question, sir. For those questions that we cannot answer, then probably we can just email to you the answers to those questions. So what are the most useful built-in functions in Python?
There's not a lot of built-in functions. Print. There because what Python does is it has a standard library that you import bits and pieces of, so that you don't have the entire library all at once taking up memory space. No, so it doesn't slow down. So depends on your use case. So if you're doing a lot of mathematical things, probably importing from a math library like NumPy, and then use that. As far as built-in functions, there's not a lot of built-in functions. So, and when I say functions, ang may parenthesis no, not ang commands mismo. Pero so to answer your question, siguro na built-in, probably print.
Okay. So that's it. Thank you so much, Sir Jorge, for your time and for taking time as well answering all the questions that been submitted to us through our open forum link. And all right, so with that, we would like to turn over the virtual floor to our host this afternoon, Ms. Red Dawn Laurente.
Thank you, Sir Jorge, for that very insightful webinar, and also to Miss Sally for her superb facilitation. We would like to express our most profound appreciation to our expert speaker, Sir Jorge Cosgayon. Shall we give him a virtual round of applause? And kindly utilize the comment section of this live stream and say thank you to Sir Jorge for sharing his valuable time and expertise, or send some virtual heart or virtual clap reactions. Now we move on to the awarding of certificate to our resource speaker. And our certificate reads, the Province of Negros Occidental and Negros Occidental Language and Information Technology Center present this certificate of appreciation to Sir Jorge Cusgayon for sharing your valuable expertise and commendable service extended as the speaker in the webinar Introduction to Python Programming this 21st day of April 2022 via YouTube and Facebook live stream. And to conclude this event, let us also hear a message from our very supportive and engaged industry partner, Coders Tribe, represented by its co-founder, Mr. Kim Ralph Mentino. Let us give him a generous round of applause.
Hello, good afternoon. Masyado akong excited. Good afternoon. Thank you, Ms. Red. So, it's my time for giving a closing address for the webinar. It said, so it's given me a great pleasure to address this closing session. So first, I would like to congratulate all of the participants, not just in Negros Occidental, but also in some other regions that where our live broadcast has reached. So I'm glad to feel and see your interest in the active participation in this wondrous learning experience together with our speaker, Sir Jorge Cuscayon, which would not be possible, of course, without the initiative of the NOLITC team. So we have now reached the end of this webinar, but it is only the beginning of a new path to explore for those interested in pursuing a career in technology. However, this could also be the beginning of valuing technology in our community, as in, tech helps. Technology has transformed our world and our daily lives over the years. Furthermore, technology has created incredible tools and resources, putting useful information at our fingertips. Other advantage includes increased efficiency in the healthcare industry, advances in medicine, and improved learning opportunities, particularly right now in the light of the pandemic. New technologies have resulted in more sustainable methodologies, improved stewardship of our natural resources, and the conversion to solar and renewable energy sources. And it has been demonstrated that these have a hugely positive impact on the environment, which we recently learned from the news that our climate and the earth require assistance in order to be restored. But I'm afraid that we won't be able to continue developing this kind of technology if there aren't enough people or talents in the future. So my question right now is, how do we keep it going? The webinar we have today is one of the steps toward spreading knowledge about technology and developing talent in this field. So we are very thankful to our speaker and of course the NOLITC and the Province of Negros Occidental on making this event successful. We must concentrate on developing talents for the community, particularly for the youth. As a result, the Coders Tribe, NOLITC, runs certain programs to develop the skills of our local talents. And we are just waiting for you to be part of it. So see you around. Sa liwat, madamo nga salamat and have a great afternoon for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sir Kim, for that very wonderful and meaningful message. Moreover, we would also like to thank our active participants for tuning in up to the end of this session. Madamo man nga salamat sa inyong nga presensya and sa inyong nga oras. I also would like to emphasize how you can get a certificate for attending this webinar online. Please provide us your evaluation through the link provided in the comment section, or you may also scan the QR code that will be flashed on your screen right here. Okay, so I hope that you are doing your evaluation. Your email address should be typed in correctly, and be careful with the spelling of your names and your email address so it won't bounce back. The evaluation site will be open only until 6 o'clock this evening. Okay, so there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. This concludes our NOLITC Tech4ED Webinar 3 Introduction to Python Programming. On Monday, April 25th, the center will have another amazing webinar on self-compassion. See you in the same platform that you are currently using. You should be able to receive a link through your email. So that's it, everyone. Please stay safe and take care. Keep smiling and stay strong. NOLITC Inspire, NOLITC Cares, Avance, Negrense.
Woo!
Have you ever felt?
Are you listening? Damn. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.